Story 1. My girlfriend wanted all the benefits of a partner, but didn't want to be in a committed relationship. Story 2. It wasn't one thing, but three separate issues. I had my suspicions and reached my breaking point when she went out to dinner with a male friend from high school who had moved to our area. I went through her phone and saw messages between them. Then I found messages from a guy at her workplace who was berating her for cheating on him with the guy from high school. I also discovered explicit messages, including an inappropriate photo, from our neighbor to my girlfriend. I sent the photo to myself and then forwarded it to his fiancée. She called me a liar and refused to believe it. I don't know where she thought I got the picture from. She's long gone, but for a few years, she made my life a living hell. Story 3. I was just 18 and pregnant. I had to beg him to come to the hospital when I was miscarrying. At one point, he was so rude to me that a nurse scolded him. He texted me later that night about how lucky he was, implying that not everyone gets so lucky, referring to my miscarriage. I would like to be one of those people who wishes their ex well, but it was challenging to go through that alone and to move on alone. I wish him a life of constant inconveniences. Story 4. He kept ignoring me and raised his voice at me in front of my entire family while we were on vacation. He wanted me to be a housewife. I packed up and left. I will never let a man dictate my paycheck. Story 5. My most recent ex was a unique type of crazy. Most people say their exes were irrational over simple disputes, but she was truly unstable. She could not leave me alone and required constant contact. She ruined her own job due to the stress over our relationship when all I wanted was some peace and temporary solitude. She could sense that I was going to break up with her, and she blurted out, "I might be pregnant," out of nowhere. I still broke up with her because I knew it was not true. She continued the whole facade of being pregnant for 9 months thereafter, claiming I was the father. I am being completely serious. Story 6. She had a hard time getting up on time, so I would go to her place to wake her up to prevent her from losing her job. At first, she appreciated my help, but one time she became very angry with me. I left after she got up and texted her to apologize, explaining that I was just trying to help. She replied that she didn't need my assistance and then stopped communicating with me. After not hearing from her for a few days, I sent her a text saying we were done and never heard from her again. Story 7. He used the money I gave him for his birthday present to gamble. He then called me foolish for giving him the money instead of wrapping the present. Apparently, it's my fault he drove to the casino and gambled the money. Story 8. He refused to seek help for his severe mental health issues. There is only so much guilt I can tolerate from his suicide threats and complaints about his life, especially when I see no effort on his part to improve. It has become more than I am willing to handle. Story 9. In college, the first time we met on campus, she was excited to show me that she had stayed up and sewn "Y" onto the back of her left hand with a needle and thread. Story 10. I have to pick one thing? He deceived me during sex by removing a condom without my knowledge. He pretended it fell off inside me, which led to me becoming pregnant. He verbally abused me for a couple of weeks, alternating between insisting I get an abortion and saying we could make it work. I chose to have an abortion because I was not ready for children, did not want any with him, and felt too young to be a parent. What prompted me to break up with him was when we fought and I reminded him of what he had done. His only response was to become upset that I accused him of murdering his baby. That was about 12 years ago. He is a terrible person, and I hope he is miserable. Story 11. She just wasn't ready to be an adult with all the responsibilities that entailed, and showed no signs of being ready anytime soon. It was still a difficult decision to break up, even though I knew it was for the best, not just for me but for her as well. Story 12. My best friend came over while shopping with my mom and showed me her text to him, suggesting that if they were alone together, something would probably happen. I had her belongings packed before she got home. Story 13. The specific last straw of unreasonableness. We both fell asleep watching television, and the next morning after we woke up, she said, "You didn't kiss me goodnight last night." Yeah, we both fell asleep watching television. You didn't kiss me goodnight either. When we go to bed, I'm usually the one who rolls over to initiate a goodnight kiss. I'm not seeing what the issue is. We went back and forth on that for a minute or two. Then she sighed and said, there was really a simple solution to this. All you had to do was give me a kiss. Are you serious right now? If all you wanted was a kiss, you could have just come in for a good morning kiss. If all you wanted was a kiss, why did you present it as something I did wrong? Not only do I not want to kiss you right now, I don't even want to be here. And to be completely honest, I would rather end this entire relationship right now than ever have to have another conversation like this again. Story 14. Verbal abuse, disrespect, and lack of love from her are interconnected issues. Story 15. It was several small things that built up over the years, and then one significant event solidified it. He played games on my iPad because I barely used it, and he was sending inappropriate pictures on a dating app with it. We were a heterosexual monogamous couple, and he was cheating on me with men and couples. When I confronted him with the evidence in my hand, he tried to deny it. Story 16. She said if we ever got married, there was no way we could have a dirty dog. So I immediately ended the relationship and got 2 dogs. It was one of the smartest and best decisions of my life. Story 17. She wanted us to be open about our feelings and problems. Translation. Only her feelings and problems should be heard and cared for, not mine. Story 18. She was finishing graduate school and would have a 3-month period without an income, not because she couldn't get a job, but because she felt she deserved time off. She expected to move in with me and have me pay for everything during that 3-month period. I deserve a break. Okay, sure, but why didn't you save up for it? I told her I wasn't going to pay for her to live just because she was too unwilling to work, even 10 hours a week. I was more polite than that, but that was the gist. The thing is, I wasn't opposed to her moving in or even helping. It was her absolute entitlement of, I just finished school. You should pay for me to have 12 weeks off. And her furious reaction at the implication that she should try to contribute. She yelled, I deserve a break at me. Never mind that she could go home and live with her parents for a few months. It wasn't even that she didn't have other options. She just wanted to live with me in my beachfront apartment and have me pay for everything. Also worth noting, it took her 7 years to complete a 4-year program because she took multiple breaks. I graduated from a professional program on a Thursday and started work the following Monday because I didn't have the money to take any time off. I am absolutely not going to merge my life with someone so lazy and entitled. Story 19. I went through his phone because I had a bad feeling, and I found a text that said, she's just not my cup of tea, and I think it's time I dump that tea down the drain. Story 20. Her college-age daughter got my number from her mother's phone, and she would get drunk and text me. It became overwhelming, and I couldn't handle it anymore. Her mother thought it was humorous, especially regarding her daughter's sexual suggestions. Story 21. It was a compilation of things that amounted to feeling like I was dating a child or a useless robot. I had to tell him how to do everything. If I needed emotional support, he would verbatim repeat the same phrases I told him to support him about different things. He could not think outside of the box at all and struggled with empathy and putting himself in my shoes. I took a very important 8-hour exam in another city, then drove a couple of hours back to my city, and it did not occur to him to come see me, offer to grab me some dinner, call me on my drive home, or anything. His excuse was that he didn't know if I was busy, but he never texted or called to ask. I got an injury at work and, aside from an "oh my God," he barely responded at all until I asked him to go to the store to get pain medication and Band-Aids. The final straw was moving in with him when I started clinicals and coming home from working 8 to 6 in the hospital, only to immediately cook dinner, take out the trash, and go grocery shopping all by myself while he stayed at home all afternoon watching television. I would come home exhausted and needing to study for my exam, but the house would be a mess with recycling items all over the floor, an overflowing trash can, and no food ready for dinner, while he would just be laying on the sofa doing nothing. When I finally broke up with him, he cited all the reasons he was a good boyfriend, which was just him listing all the things I had had to ask him to do in the first place. Story 22. There were many things, but primarily it involved negging, a subtle form of abuse that you may not recognize as such because it is not physical until later on. Story 23. There were several issues with my ex, including abusive behavior, alcoholism, and serious problems with our living situation. The tipping point came the day after my grandfather passed away when I was with my mother. My ex video called me completely naked and covered in bruises. She had ridden her bicycle to a bar, gotten very drunk, crashed it on the way home, and blamed me for it because I wouldn't give her the keys to my car. She followed that up with a callous remark about my grandfather's death. Up to that last statement, I wanted so badly to support her so she could improve, which was my mistake during the 2.5 years we were together. Last I heard, she had a serious health scare and quit drinking. I never hated her. I felt really sad for her. I hope she continues to get better. Story 24. My boyfriend of a few months picked his nose and wiped a bloody booger on his bedroom wall. That was the end for me. Story 25. I wasn't allowed to have an opinion she didn't agree with. If I did agree with her on something, she would smugly shove it in my face and say that I needed to listen to her more often, as if I were a pet in training. Story 26. She was my best friend before the relationship, and it stayed that way during the relationship. I came to the realization that it was platonic love, not romantic. Story 27. She didn't want me to work on my mental health even after I told her I was thinking about suicide. She couldn't bear the thought of me possibly going to a mental hospital for a week and gave me a choice of staying with her or getting help. Story 28. She made inappropriate comments like, "Are you following me?" Or, "Did you lace my drink?" After a quick breakup, she was with someone new within a week. The guy resembled someone out of a homeless portrayal of Jesus. Story 29. Not as dramatic as others in this thread. It was many things, but one was the breaking point. After years of the relationship and asking him to listen more, be more present, and think of me more, he bought me a few gifts for Valentine's Day. A huge box of chocolate and a gift box of different scented lotions. I repeatedly told him that I hate having chocolate at home because it makes me binge, and I have eczema and need to be very careful with the products I use. He knows this, as he commented many times about the fact that nothing smells in my bathroom. In that moment, I realized that after all these years, this man still knew nothing about me. I decided it was time to move on. Story 30. He didn't want to engage in sexual activity with me because the last time he was with a virgin and they broke up. She became very emotional and clingy. Oral sexual activities were acceptable to him, but he refused to engage in actual intercourse because he didn't want to handle the emotional aspect of it. This was a firm rejection for me because it seemed like he didn't take the relationship seriously, and I do not participate in casual dating. Story 31. I found his marriage license certificate for his widowed sister-in-law. He filed it while we were dating. Story 32. My ex was unable to take responsibility for her own actions. The final straw was when she overslept and missed her son's doctor's appointment. I had already taken the kids to school and didn't remember the appointment either, which I had done routinely for months on my own. But she yelled at me. When I tried to say we both forgot, she walked away and acted like it was only my fault, despite her son needing vaccinations for school for months. She was only worried about how she would appear to others. It was always about maintaining appearances. This led to a major fight, and I ended up moving out that day after I had to call the police, as things were getting heated and I didn't want it to turn abusive or physical. I'm not perfect. I admit that I had flaws in the relationship, and I have things I'm working on. But she seriously couldn't get up before noon without me waking her. Even then, she'd yell at me for waking her up, so I just stopped doing it. Who wants to provoke someone every day? In summary, she forgot a vaccine appointment for her child, and I was blamed for it. Story 33. Once he put in the effort to win me over, he apparently decided that he didn't need to do anything to keep me. It turns out you still have to continue doing what you did at the beginning of the relationship, or at least the bare minimum. Story 34. Abuse occurred over 15 years ago. One never truly forgets. The reason I get into ruts now may be narcissistic, but I enjoy feeling wanted. If people do not make an effort or reciprocate, it is a turn-off for me. I love being excited, even if nothing happens. Story 35. She had no ambition. I was a freshman in college and she was a senior in high school. We met at a summer job and I was enthusiastic about college. However, she told me not only did she not want to go to college, but her goal was to work at CVS. Not the pharmacy where the pharmacy technicians work, not CVS Health, not Caremark, CVS Retail. The place where you buy snacks and over-the-counter medicines. Since she didn't attend my school and never would, it was a long-distance relationship. She attempted to dictate what I could and couldn't do from afar. She warned me against partying and expressed that she would be upset if she found out I even looked at another girl. She even sent me an email outlining instructions on how to be a good boyfriend. I ended that situation quickly, face to face, not through text or anything else. Story 36. He cheated on me with the hostess at our sales job in a small town. Everyone knew. I felt ashamed to go to work. Story 37. We were at a college party when he and his friend decided they wanted cocaine. So we went to their friend's house, and they asked me to drive. I foolishly agreed, thinking it would be a quick trip. When we arrived, a random girl and guy got into my car. The girl had a backpack full of who knows what and was screaming to drive. They said they had been held up by another group that had guns on their friends in the basement and urged us to leave immediately. My first thought was, you just left them in there? Then I realized, wait, do I have a ton of cocaine and guns in my car right now? Tears began streaming down my face as we drove away. My mind raced with fear. Was I going to die, get arrested, or go to jail? My boyfriend at the time looked in the mirror and said to his friend in the randoms, "Oh, I'm sorry, guys. She's not used to this." What? Used to this? Who is used to this kind of chaos on a Saturday night? Not my innocent self. And that was not how you comfort your girlfriend of a year. We ended up dropping them off at a gas station. The next day, I wouldn't talk to him, and he called me a derogatory term for being upset for no reason. I don't think I've ever screamed at someone like I did at him that day and kicked him out. I packed his things in trash bags and told his dad to come get them the next day. He then stole my debit card and spent my tuition money on pizza, his phone bill, and motorcycle equipment to get back at me. Thankfully, I got that money back and blocked him for good. I hope karma is treating him well. Story 38. He broke up with me, and it's a long story. In short, he couldn't face anything, thought it was better to run, and was avoidant and emotionally unavailable. I lost myself in the relationship, let my boundaries disappear, and kept trying to please until I couldn't take it anymore. Story 39. His father was incredibly lazy while his mother did everything. I could see that he would likely be a lazy father if we had children, so I ended the relationship. I should have ended it in the first 3 months when he exhibited jealousy issues, but unfortunately, I received poor advice and stayed. Story 40. He did many questionable things throughout our relationship, but the one thing that finally made me leave was discovering he was still checking on his ex, almost 5 years into our relationship. That was the one thing I was always insecure about and had to struggle with the entire time. I constantly convinced myself that he was over her and that there was no way he wasn't after being with me for so long and that I had to be better than her. But finding out he never actually let her go was my tipping point. I had no regrets about leaving after that. Story 41. Their hygiene or lack thereof. Personally, they were clean enough, but the way they lived was unappealing to me. I just couldn't see myself living like that. Story 42. Few things, but ultimately, she got pregnant with a guy who was in and out of jail. I didn't find out until after I signed the birth certificate. I decided to bear the pain and try to raise the child because I wasn't thinking clearly due to manipulations. I was heavily abused mentally and physically by her, all while being reminded I was playing stepdad and was a worthless father and husband for 3 years, before I couldn't bear it anymore. Story 43. He drank every day. He couldn't be bothered to even get me a birthday card after almost a year of dating but could afford to smoke and buy beer. He ignored me when he was having a bad day, yet his social media score was increasing. Story 44. She constantly complained about everything. She said she would take care of things at home while I was working 16-hour days. I would come home and every light would be on, every television would be on, and she would be sitting on the couch with her iPad, wearing the same clothes she had on when I got out of bed at 6 a.m. The laundry was still in the hamper, the dishes were still dirty, and there was no dinner waiting. I told her it felt like I was dating my daughter. Working 16-hour days, I would come home and have to do 2 or 3 hours of housework, then get up and do it all again the following day. I was no longer sexually attracted to her and found myself making excuses to go into work on the weekend. I would sit in my car for an hour before going in because I knew I would get no peace once I walked through the door of my own house. The month I moved them out of my house, my utility bill dropped from $450 a month to $120. By the third month, my utility bill was around $85. Every time I came in from work and sat down, I had the energy to read a book or watch a show, and I remember thinking, it feels like I have a whole other day in my day. I realized how miserable I had been. Story 45. The person before my husband sent a message saying I made him feel undesirable and that he couldn't handle our relationship. So we broke up and I got involved with a different ex. We briefly got back together and hooked up. He asked if I had been with anyone else and I replied yes. Then I asked him, and he responded that he had been with 2 women. I felt like that was it for us, so I decided to move on. Story 46. He refused to communicate about problems. He truly refused to. Can we talk about this? No, we don't need to. We can't resolve our issues if we don't. I don't know what to tell you. This has been on a loop for years. Story 47. She got a new boyfriend and didn't even try to hide it. She was a drinker, and I think that had something to do with her poor decisions. I left her in 2003 and married someone else in 2016. Things turned out okay. Story 48. I didn't even know we were dating. He just decided on his own that we were a couple and kept telling everyone he knew that I was his girlfriend. It was very awkward when I had to break up with him on a call with his mom and sister listening in. Story 49. Lying about texting his ex, lying about pornography and interest in underage girls, judging me for my sexual history, and then finally cheating on me with our female friend. I'm still getting over that situation. Story 50. The constant jealousy that sparked fights. No, saying thank you to the girl who bagged our groceries was not flirting or trying to get in her pants. Further context on that fight. We were in our mid-20s and the bagger was at most 17. Just no. Story 51. There were many other issues, but I was tired of hearing him argue with his parents, whether in front of me or over the phone when we had each other on speaker. He fights and screams like a teenager, and I was just exhausted from hearing it. Story 52. Ex had a severe cocaine addiction and got me addicted as well. He began having anger issues and attempted to physically attack me. He even became upset when I started seeking therapy and working on improving myself. Story 53. He cheated on me with our barista. He ended up getting her pregnant and ruining her life, so I feel fortunate to have avoided that situation. Story 54. I was tired of being the only adult in the house. Cooking, cleaning, childcare, making appointments, planning, and doing laundry. If I didn't do it, it didn't get done. He was too busy playing video games. Story 55. He is very toxic. Whenever we fought, he would attempt to hurt himself or engage in self-harm. We were just 1 month into our relationship at that time. Due to COVID-19, people couldn't leave the house, and we were living separately, so I ended communication with him completely. Story 56. I wanted kids, but I didn't. There was too much pressure regarding my career, despite my disability and my satisfaction with a job that supported my lifestyle. Some people believe that aiming for the very top makes you more attractive. There was also a perception that having a vasectomy diminishes your masculinity, even after having all the children you desire. Honestly, I have no idea why I didn't leave sooner. Story 57. 4 years of emotional abuse and coercion culminated when he became angry with me for not having his full name saved in my phone contacts. Throughout that time, I was labeled as feminist in his phone, which was derogatory. He was grasping at straws, and that was the final incident. Story 58. Alcohol transformed her personality. I would love to hear her response to this. It's great that we remain friends. Story 59. Before we started dating, my friend called him cute to let me know he was a catch. I must have mentioned that she complimented his appearance at some point in our relationship. He then tried to kiss her twice throughout our relationship, unsuccessfully, and attempted to shame her by saying it was what she wanted. Story 60. I was in a bad state, physically and mentally, after fighting cancer for 3 years. I started to have difficulty controlling my temper and was genuinely convinced I was going to die. I broke up with my girlfriend after we graduated high school because I didn't want her to see me wither away, and I also didn't want to subject her to my increasingly negative mood. I went into remission that same year but spent the next 3 years recovering from the time spent in treatment. It took a lot of effort, surgeries, and self-reflection before I finally got better. We are actually married now, so it was all for the best. I've never been happier. Story 61. I realized that I had twisted the relationship to such an extent that I couldn't fix it, so we parted ways. Story 62. He is a mama's boy and uses his attention deficit hyperactivity disorder as an excuse for everything, including cheating, which he also attributes to his condition. Story 63. Said something about marriage. I don't even remember if it was directed toward our relationship or not. I just remember thinking no, and to this day I wonder why out of all the terrible things he put me through, that was the breaking point. Story 64. He spent all our company money on drugs and alcohol, lying to my face in front of others. Later, he apologized, acknowledging that I was right. Story 65. She put my life in danger by having a tantrum at 2 a.m. while walking back to our hotel in a new city. Story 66. I was the other guy. She told me she did it over the phone, but he never believed her. She kept saying she was really going to do it in person, then chickened out. I realized that I wasn't going to waste time with someone who was scared to be with me. Story 67. Disrespectful children and a grandmother with substance abuse issues who is always intrusive. She treats her best friend better than she treats me. I had to leave due to these circumstances. Story 68. We had a normal and functional relationship. However, she wanted me to spend more time with her friends, which was reasonable. The problem was that I found her friends difficult to be around, making it hard for me to do so. Story 69. He didn't respect animals, among other things. He once joked about harming my cats to get all the attention. Story 70. First, drug addiction, theft, cheating, emotional abuse. Second, physical abuse, emotional abuse, cheating. Third, cheating, emotional abuse, committing an unforgivable act against me. I haven't dated anyone in 4 years. Being single is great. I look forward to eventually being alone. Story 71. Financial irresponsibility. 20 years ago, I had just landed my first full-time job after college. My fiancée was a vibrant young woman who had just graduated as well. She lived at home and, instead of pursuing her planned career, opted for part-time work at her family's struggling novelty store as a favor to them, while also spending cash from the register. I discovered she was in significant credit card debt, paying a third of her actual paycheck solely towards interest. We created a reasonable plan for her to get out of debt within a year, and I contributed a few $100s each month to help her pay it down while assisting her in applying for higher-paying jobs. Things ended 6 months later in the span of 3 days when 1. She and her family demanded I pay for the unplanned wedding because they couldn't afford the expensive venue and valet parking. 2. She bragged to our friends about not taking a real job as long as she received her monthly allowance. 3. As an incentive, she gifted me a professionally made calendar of herself, which cost enough to have completely paid off all her credit cards. And 4. I received an even better job offer in another state. I took the job, packed my things, wished her luck, and started driving. I never spoke to her again. Story 72. After trying to fix things for months and being ignored emotionally and physically, I came home one night after being complimented by some men in my field. My intelligence and capability were praised, and it was flattering. However, I was dedicated and loyal, so I left the event early and found him drunk on the couch, playing Xbox with none of the chores done. He barely acknowledged my presence when I walked in, and it just came out of me. Turn that off. This is over, and we need to figure out what to do about the apartment. I snapped. After months of trying, crying, and begging for the bare minimum, I walked in that door and just stopped caring. Story 73. I had been having trouble, so I was sleeping in an unrenovated apartment downstairs in our house for a couple of months. One night, she came down and said, "You need to make a choice. Either you're in this relationship or you're not. If you're not, then you have to move out as soon as possible." I told her, "I'm not completely sure, so if I have to give you an answer now, then it will have to be no." I moved out a couple of weeks later. This principle of, if it's not a complete yes, it's a no for now, has become a useful guide for decision-making. Story 74. He accused me of cheating and called me a liar. He said on the phone, "I'm disappointed in you. You know what you did." I never thought to cheat on him, and we were only 1 month into the relationship. We were in a long-distance relationship, and it ended up being a 6-hour phone call from midnight until 6 a.m. during which I deleted my social media for him, among other things. The next day, I called my sister and realized I was in a bad relationship. I got out of it quickly. Story 75. I have never initiated a breakup. I am open to whatever and have a high tolerance for nonsense. As long as you contribute and don't mind leaving so I can get up for work without distraction. Story 76. She didn't want to grow as a person. She was complacent with staying the same. I offered to walk her through everything, but she resisted. Now she's back home, 3 hours away on the reservation. She would have made a terrible mother and was not great in bed, but she is a solid person. We left on good terms, and I could call her if I needed to. Finally realizing that I can't change someone or want something for them that they don't want for themselves is liberating. My hands are tied. Story 77. As far as serious relationships go, I keep a few boyfriends regularly. He often used the phrase, "I will leave you," which seemed to be an attempt to make me respond according to his expectations. I never understood what I was doing wrong. He frequently threw fits about something, and I never provoked him since I am a very quiet, laid-back person. So when he came home, everything he owned was neatly organized outside the door. I didn't throw it around or act in a toxic manner. I made sure it was all securely placed for him to take somewhere else. Apparently, he didn't want to leave as he protested at my door for a while, but I thought I was just helping him by giving him what he asked for. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.